have a triangle on this Maurizio
Greg,
at
we're
the
live.
top.
Greg, let's go offline with Steven. And I want to start off by apologizing for the late start. We are experiencing some technical difficulties, but I think we're in a good place to get this going while Steven works those technical difficulties out in the background. Um, I'm Sal Marino, co-chair of the Northeast Cargo Security Council. We have, I think, over 70 folks registered today. Thank you. And we're really excited to kick this off. And not strange to anyone, but generally when councils do kick off, we do have a antitrust and confidentiality statement that we do have to read. So before we do, I definitely arigato gozaimasu. Thank you very much to our sponsors. Stephen, can you go back up to the sponsor page for a second, please? Or yeah, thanks, bud. Um, this is amazing. We haven't charged our members a penny. Our sponsors are the ones really responsible for allowing this to happen. Um, I couldn't thank you all enough. And we've got more. We've got more commitments coming in, and we haven't even really reached out to anyone. So super exciting. And we'll talk more about the sponsors in a minute. But thank you to our sponsors. A lot of love. I see a lot of hearts. Come on, bang those hearts for our sponsors. Okay, Steven, let's check out that. There we go. We got claps and hearts. We got talented people in the room here. So, the Northeast Cargo Security Council is committed to full compliance with all applicable antitrust and competition laws. Discussions involving pricing, rates, market allocation, customer allocation, or any other competitively sensitive business practices are strictly prohibited. If such a topic arises, it will be stopped immediately. Our mission is to promote lawful information sharing, collaboration, and education to improve cargo security across the supply chain. Thank you for your cooperation and participation. We're taking donations for my acting abilities to deliver that mission statement there. But Steve, if you can get us into the next slide, welcome and opening remarks. We just kind of did that. And for, I guess, housekeeping purposes, if you do have questions, um, you can raise your hand. I don't know if we'll get to them until the end, but by all means, you can start sending in questions because towards the end, we're going to have an entire section where you can ask questions, whether it's for the speakers based on their presentation, it's questions to the board or other members, or maybe just have something to say. So, next slide, please. I should probably have capabilities to change it myself, right? Let's see. Okay. So for the agenda today, we're going to do some updates. That will be me. I will updating you on some of the things that we've done and are continue to do. Uh, and then Stephen Lang is going to give us a cargo theft intelligence brief on the Northeast. Our or gosh, our Jared Palmer from Epic Insurance and our board is going to be speaking about the Montgomery and Caribe impact. And then we have Mo and we have Greg talking about anti-jamming technology. We will open it up for discussion afterwards and then close it out. So again, thank you for giving us the next, hour and 50 minutes. We're excited about this, and bear with us. It's our first webinar um, with the council, and I think I think we're looking at doing the next one virtual as well, and then doing an in person in Q4. So maybe we could tag on like a holiday party or something like that. So to be determined, but we will communicate that to you. First slide, Steve. Great. So where we're going, what are we doing, what have we done? Today we are just nearing 250 members of the council. That's incredible. I said it at our last meeting. We're really good at selling free. Okay. So it's real easy to do. And this is the part where I come to you with my hands out and ask you to help. For certain that it's real easy. Like I'll be honest, that's the only, I'm the chubby Italian guy from Jersey. I'm just always going to be that. My mom would smack me if I wasn't, right? And at the end of the day, it's disheartening when we put a lot of this work into it and we're putting up posts on LinkedIn and we're sharing and trying to create that brand awareness, and we get 2 likes, right? 3 likes, 1 share, and it's like our board members that are doing it. If y'all are into it, how about the Jersey guys saying y'all? All right. If y'all are into this, please be in it with us. We're fighting. We're fighting for the integrity of the supply chain and your customers' freight and your logistic providers and the industry as a whole and the economy. We know the impact this has, right? So super important. Takes 2 seconds to share a link or make a post, like it, make a comment. Comments help a lot. It brings visibility. So here's why I'm having this call to action. I'm not expecting anyone to go out and sell the membership program to anyone, okay? But the more companies and the more people we have participating in this collaborative effort, the better information and intelligence and education and training we can provide. So it takes a village, where we need to encourage more intelligence reporting. I'm sure Mauricio will touch on that. And that's going to bring me into what we're doing with some of the committees. As we've communicated out in the past, and there's an entire web page dedicated to it. We're trying to build multiple committees. Thank you for many of those that have already submitted. It is a slow process, but we are working through it much quicker now. And our goal is to assign heads of each committee, and then those committee heads will be responsible for filling that committee and those panels. So there's sponsor committees, member committees, event committees, right? Law enforcement and intelligence committees. Everybody kind of signed up for that. I'm hoping that we can get some others to convert over into some of the other councils and committees. We brought on our law enforcement liaison board through Steve Denbowski. Stephen was captain for the Bergen County Police Department and has played many roles interagency. And for many years, he spent just networking with law enforcement, like banging on doors, walking into departments, introducing himself to the brass badges and higher. He's done this for a decade. He used to work at CargoNet for several years. So he naturally, to have someone that connected so quickly was a real easy fill for us. But we have a lot of really, really experienced and connected people that have signed up for that committee. So it's going to be great. Expect the intelligence to come. Let's see. Branding, communications, we're working on podcast, more like quick clips. So maybe a 30-second clip. I did the first one. It's called the Cargo Theft Confidential. And we're going to be releasing these 30-second clips on social media. And we'll have a YouTube channel as well. So hopefully that will, again, help our members, but also help the others that aren't aware of us just yet. And then we have, how many members can get involved? What is that? Oh, I'm going to hand this over to Maurizio in a quick second. Legislative initiatives, if anyone's paying attention and reading the news, there's a lot of good noise as it relates to lobbying legislators for more government resources and more stricter penalties, which quite honestly, I don't think we really need. We've got some really good penalties. I think we need stricter prosecution. But it's all been focused at the national level, right? At the federal level, we are going to hone in on our community, right, on the Northeast. And we're going to start with New Jersey. Maurizio and I have a meeting with the New Jersey Trucking Association and some others that some other lobbyists that we are familiar with, and we're going to lean on some of the law enforcement agencies as well to help us try and see what we can do in New Jersey as it relates to better legislation and more resources. New Jersey State Police, there's 3 or 4 guys or gals working that unit. New Jersey's top 3. I'm going to save that for later for Stephen, and I know Maurizio has an opinion on that as well. So that's really exciting for us because that's where really the pinnacle of change begins, right? And then we'll branch out. We'll go to Connecticut. We'll go to Pennsylvania. So anybody in this room has contacts or connections that you think can help us get to that point, please reach out to us. We've got that email info@necsc.co. You can communicate anything or through the website. Regarding the website, we're creating a few different interesting areas there. One in particular, we have a program that kind of just started organically, right? So Maurizio and I and some others said, hey, let's just offer some discounts to our members. And then some of the other sponsors were like, hey, can I do that? We're like, absolutely. So we're going to create a little page that's going to have membership promotions and discounts specific to NECSC members. We're just trying to build more value for everyone. And please, I know we said this is free for all of 2026, and it is. Start talking up the chain to get the approvals to join in January. We haven't picked out a fee yet. It's going to be under $250 a year. So hopefully it's not a big ask or a big lift. And we may not have proven ourselves yet to you, but I promise you by the end of the year, that will be a proven number that you should easily get approved. I'm sure there's more. It might come back to me. It might not. I think I said enough for now. We do have Maurizio in the room, Stephen. Yep.
Yeah. Yes, you do.
Yep. Hey, there he is. So at this moment, I'm going to hand this over to Maurizio, who is going to add on his comments and wrap up this opening and talk about operational strategies and, where we're going. So thank you for your time. Hopefully I'll be back on in a little bit.
All right. Thanks, Sal. I know that was a lot to consume, right? He's a very passionate speaker. I've known him for 40 years and he's never disappointed. So Sal, thank you. The one thing I think is most important, and you're probably, trying to figure out like who exactly makes up the membership of our, of our great council. We're trying to really create the right verticals and connect them in a way that is seamless. Let me kind of explain that, right? So we have retailers, thank you. We have manufacturers. We have transportation companies, distribution companies, right? And then you get into the insurance play. We have our insurance partners, and one of them we're lucky enough to have on our board. And then I think what would be most helpful for us, and I'm just talking about the private sector right now, right? Then I think would be most important for us to have is a real slice and dice of the public sector. So when you think about the public sector, we automatically move toward the agencies, the law enforcement verticals, right? However, there's a ton of value I've learned over the last 25 years in connecting with the academia. I was blessed to be part of the advisory board that built the undergraduate program at Rutgers University for supply chain. And I think there's a huge value in bringing in the right academia into this space, right? So we have the private sector, we slice through that. We've got representation of all of those things I've shared with you. We have the public sector. We have probably the best of the best that have decided to be part of this from law enforcement, city, county, state, federal. We know we have those great people with us. But the one thing I think is extremely helpful for us would be to make sure that we have the academia join us, right? So we're working it through that. Sal and I have had multiple discussions. I've been dealing directly with Dr. Lele via email to hopefully get that group to come with us. Dr. Lele is the head of the school, the business school for Rutgers University. So I've been connecting with her as well. On top of that, though, we have the trade associations. You have your RELA, you have your NRF, right, on the retail side, and then you've got a bunch of the others as well. So we want to make sure that the trade associations are engaged in what we're trying to accomplish. We've already began to have pretty good conversations and exchanges with the ORCAs for the Northeast. And then lastly, I speak for me and say the Loss Prevention magazine has been instrumental, right? The trade magazines in telling our story. So they started by letting their 37,000 readers know that we've come back around and we're going to get into full swing soon. So we think the first part of the business is building that matrix, right? The communication matrix that has a voice from every vertical so that we're not speaking north and south, we're speaking wide. And then with that comes how do we connect all of those people in a pretty seamless fashion? And I think Sal did a great job of talking about the comms and really the branding piece, right? So we have to become the nucleus of why all of those want to engage and share information, not just intelligence, but best practices. And then, of course, last but not least, is making sure that we're bringing things to light. So most people think about, security councils that are all focused on stuff over the road, right? Stuff over the road. You've got your intermodal moves as well, but it's usually over the road. And for us, we've said, we've got to really start connecting with the Water Commission folks, Port Authority PD, right? Go from the water in and then bring in our partners from the airports and make sure we've got the air connected as well. Outside of the DHLs and the UPSs and some of the other big boys, brown, purple, yellow, they've got their own, airlines, but we also want to, and of course, Amazon, of course, we want to make sure that we're tying it all together. So you've got getting the right groups together, getting the private and the public sector represented correctly, connecting those by creating bridges through the trade associations and the magazines, and then, of course, go north to south and go air, land, water. So that's what we're quietly working on, is building those relationships from the last 20 some odd years, but connecting them in the right levels within our committees. So it's not just about having an intelligence committee, it's about having the right intelligence committee that has the voice of every single group that I've just shared with you. And then underneath that is having the right type of trade association that gets involved in us, and then above us, a voice of something like the magazine. So from a strategic perspective, that's how we're building out our voice and our brand and our footprint representation in the Northeast. And then obviously we've already started talking to other councils to make sure that we're able to share a common message. And you'll see probably an article come out from the Loss Prevention magazine talking about all of the regional councils that add a ton of value, because you see pockets and pieces of ORCAs, but you're not really hearing the loud voice of the regional councils that are making a difference within the transportation supply chain vertical. So that's kind of the first part of our vision. Then we'll get into phase two. We'll share that with you at the next meeting. But right now, all we're thinking about is branding, representation, voice, connectivity, vertical. Connectivity is most important for us, and then of course delivering that one massive message to the right people. And that's where, you heard Sal say something like, hey, our legislative initiative, that's multi-layered as well. We're starting with a small group. Then we're hopefully going to make our way out to Trenton, where we think we can have a voice. But at that point, we'll need different members of different agencies with us to help us make a powerful statement to the administration. So we've got a plan for that as well. So that's our phase one, right? That'll be our phase one. We'll get into phase two, but we do have a pretty girthy multi-milestone strategy that we've already worked through a good 70-80% of phase one. And we think that by the end of the year, we'll be able to deliver most of phase two. The goal is to update you through our membership comms, right? So as you receive our newsletters, all of you will be able to get an update on where we are, what we're trying to accomplish, what our milestones are, whom we've talked to, etc. And then that'll help obviously bring you guys in and help us with certain parts of trying to get it over the hump, right? Hey, I think I can help you with that. specific part that you're trying to get through. Here's my contact information. Here's who I can get you connected to. And we just keep going and going until we deliver that one giant thump when we finally take that step forward together. So that's our vision on phase one. So I'm going to pause there. I'm going to let Sal get back on. But if there's any questions, we can kind of chew through that, or we can get right into the really good stuff, which is the great speakers that we've been able to steal for this call.
Thank you, Mauricio. Very, very well said. So I believe up next we have Stephen Lang is going to run through a cargo theft intelligence brief based on some of the stats powered by CargoNet. So I do want to thank my company Verisk for allowing. Actually, pause. I want to thank all of the companies of our board members for allowing us to participate in the council, but specifically Verisk for sharing, allowing us to share some of our data. So thank you. Thanks, Steve.
Oh,
take it
thanks,
away,
Sal. Can you
Steve.
guys? Yep. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. So we're just going to briefly just go through some of the Northeast trends that we've been seeing. And as everybody knows, the Northeast has really become a target. It's right up there right now with, maybe not with California, but with Texas. It's quickly becoming the third most targeted area. If we look at our heat maps here, you'll see that New Jersey, Pennsylvania, right into New York section continues to be, or to see a large uptick. I mean, when we look at it, again, for the Northeast, for the Northeast, we're basically considering that from Maryland, Pennsylvania, and up. Right now, we've had some talks about whether or not we want to just keep it right here. But for those of us all on the call, when we're focusing in on the Northeast, it has become a big recent target. And if you look at the specifics of it, New Jersey is representing 41%, almost 42% of all of the incidents that we've been seeing. But our top city has been Philadelphia, followed by Baltimore. After that, we're getting our big Jersey city, New York, and Elizabeth, followed by Woodbridge. The next bunch of cities and counties are all in that New Jersey area. The New Jersey area specifically has seen a pretty decent spread that's been all across the state. It has been more within the north, but it has not just been one specific spot. If you look at it just for year over year, it's almost been a 40% increase from 2024 to 2025. And if you look at 26, we're already at 207. So that actually is going to show it the continued increase from 2025. And when we look at it by quarter, the end of the year has been the most targeted time of the year for the Northeast. But as you see, with 122 incidents reported in Q1, it may just be a trend that is just continuing to rise. And if you dive into more, like I was just saying, if we look at that by month over the last 2.5 years, you can see that even in 24 and 25, we did have the largest increases towards the end of the year in October, November, and December. And our analysts and team predicts that we're going to be looking at the same outcome for the rest of the year in 26. Day of the week, we do see the continued trend of the V pattern. But if you look at 26, they are almost consistent through Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, with a slight uptick up to 21% on Friday. Obviously, Friday is always going to be our day. That's going to be where we're most vulnerable. And currently in the Northeast does not show anything different than that. When we look at what's getting stolen, food and beverage is our #1 category, followed by personal care and beauty, and then metals. But if we dive down a little bit deeper and look at what's actually being stolen, it's going to be our seafood and our meat products are substantially our #1 and 2 most stolen product, followed by alcoholic beverages, and then non-alcoholic beverages, but copper has also been a high target as well. Following the trends, the national trends, the Northeast is seeing the same thing, with our warehouse and distribution centers being our #1 target, as well as parking lots and truck stops following that. But specifically, it is the same as what we're seeing on a national level. It is the warehouse locations that are our most stolen spot. And just a little bit here, we will be sending out our July 4th cargo theft advisory in the next day or so. Make sure everyone is staying safe and being more vigilant this holiday season, because we do want to, we will be sending around a complete advisory as well, with a breakdown of the trends that we are seeing and what to look out for. That will come with that as well. And everyone should receive that here if you are a part of the council. So we'll make sure that you do receive that as well. Okay, so thanks for your time. If anyone has any questions, please, we can get to them at the end. But next up, Jared Palmer is going to be speaking for us next. Jared, are you with us?
Yep. Hey, Jared, give me 30 seconds. Thanks, Stephen. Good job on that. So one thing I want to call out, and it's ironic because Maurizio and I talked about this on the podcast, and this is exactly the clip I'm extracting as a quick clip. So you'll probably see it today or tomorrow. But I was talking to Maurizio, and I'm like, talking how crazy it is to think about New Jersey being #3 in all of the US when you look at the size of California and you look at the size of Texas. So I'm going to actually, Maurizio, I'm going to ask you to come off of mute and tell me what you said when I said that.
Yeah, that wasn't difficult, right? So if you take a look at the size of California and the size of Texas and the size of New Jersey, you can begin to look at it differently. I look at it and say, square footage wise, the number, so let's just say that the theft number is the numerator. And then the denominator, we can make it whatever we want. Number of people per square foot, right? Dollar value per square foot, per capita, whatever that variable you want it to be is. New Jersey's nowhere near as big, as voluminous, or as GDP growth-wise as Texas or freaking California. California is considered the 7th largest country in the world based on GDP, right? So we're being compared to the 7th or 8th largest country in the world. It's not logical. So if we did the math differently, and we're going to probably figure out what the best variable is, unless somebody on the call has an opinion, and we're going to be able to show it, and more than likely, I'll bet you that we're probably ranked 1. And that's the fear I have, is that we keep, talking about cargo theft from a number perspective, but we're not understanding what it really means from an overall state to state comparison perspective. Our GDP is nowhere near as big as Texas, nowhere near as big as California. So therefore, we've got to look at it differently, just looking at gross domestic product alone. So we're going to do a little digging. I'm going to come back to you probably in one of the newsletters and show that comparison, because I think it's going to be very enlightening for all of us. Thanks, Al.
Yeah, thanks, Maurizio. Okay, great. Well, with that said, I am going to introduce our next speaker. It is a great honor for me. It's actually a very special person to me and to CargoNet. Jared Palmer, formerly of AFN and several other transportation brokerage firms, and now currently with Epic Insurance, was the first CargoNet member back in 2010. Repeat that, the first transportation member. We did have some insurance companies already, but he set the stage, and his current principal, Phil DiCietta from Epic Insurance, he saw the vision right away, and he brought Jared into the meeting, and Jared jumped in. I mean, he didn't even take the temperature of the pool with his toe. He didn't care if it was freezing cold. He jumped right in, and that really catapulted CargoNet. And what it does is it allows us today to share some of the stats with you. So it goes unhidden, but not forgotten. And this man has a lot of experience, and he brings so much value to the committee and the industry. I'm so very pleased to announce Mr. Jared Palmer, ladies and gentlemen. Get some
Can we
claps
just
in
make
there.
a
Come
joke of
on.
like the initial picture is when you're trying to get a job, and then the current look is when you have a job for a while. So so I'm growing on my hair clearly. But thanks for the introduction. I threw some slides together. I don't know if they made it the cut. If not, oh, they did. Oh, perfect. Okay. So as Sal mentioned, been in the business for a long time. Went to law school to make mom and dad happy. I'm more of a business person, always been a business person within the legal environment. As Sal mentioned, was very excited. I met Mauricio and Sal at a conference. My freight brokerage company had suffered a lot of high-end electronic losses in 2006, 2007. And we were just tired of being the whipping boy and just not knowing what we were doing. And so I sought out help. And that's what I got with Sal Mauricio at CargoNet. And then eventually that morphed into the National Cargo Theft Task Force and some other stuff that I got involved in. So, like they said, the impact to the economy and the country, I feel I'm a patriot. And so people robbing us and forcing me to pay more money at the grocery store is something that doesn't bode well with me. And so that was all part of the reason why I got heavily involved in that arena. And then fast forward, I did a bunch of other things and really started embracing being in the transportation and logistics world. That wasn't my initial reason for going to law school. I was an intellectual property attorney doing patents, copyrights, and trademark, and then a college friend and classmate and roommate created a logistics company and needed some legal advice and help. So that's where I came to be. Was an Epic client for 15 plus years. And then now I'm a W-2 employee inside the walls of Epic insurance brokers and consultants. So pretty full circle life deal here where was a client, now a member of this team, and getting back to working with people that I really look up to, both Sal and Mauricio, and even Will, at TJ. I've known a lot of these guys for a long time, so very excited to be part of this council and offer, I think, some practical legal insurance risk management advice from someone from a little bit of a different lens. So, all right, next slide. Unless I'm in control. No, we're good. So first thing, the internet's full of a lot of trolls. People claim to be experts in a lot of different things. I don't know if I'm an expert or not. I get hired to be an expert in cases, but I'm just a person who learns by doing. And that's how I think I've excelled in a lot of the different positions I've held. Is I don't love lawyers that sit in their ivory towers that don't actually cut their teeth on the floor. If you're in logistics, we call it the floor. I've booked loads, I've bounced loads, I've gone to warehouses, I've done trucks, I bought trucks. I've done every position you can possibly think of in that arena of 3PL trucking and logistics and forwarding. And so I come from that lens and from that experience of actually doing. And so anytime we offer practical advice to people, especially when it comes to what do you do after Montgomery or what do we do to protect the business, it comes from the person who actually has to do what the guy in the lawyer's office says to do, right? The floor is the actual ones implementing all this stuff, operators, salespeople, the accounting department, whatever. And so all that comes from kind of that mindset. So first thing is stay calm. These people that claim to be experts are really not, probably. It's clickbait, a lot of stuff. The world is not coming to an end. I think it's kind of ridiculous, to be honest with you. Montgomery really didn't change a whole lot If you talk to actual people that are knowledgeable in this space, and I'm talking about litigators, it's not that big of a deal. Brokers and shippers have been sued since 2004. Ironically, C.H. Robinson was one of the first cases, again, which is the case involving Montgomery. But so this is not a new concept to sue somebody with deep pockets. It's not a new concept to raise a negligent hiring claim. So these are just not new things. What's new is that one of the very small subsets of defenses that lawyers were creative in coming up with is gone. And only a few states even adopted that preemption defense. So, it was great. Creative lawyers, creative minds came up with a great argument. It worked. It got the cases dismissed very fast with a lot less litigation dollars being spent, a lot less discovery being done. Okay, so that's gone. But you still have to prove things, and facts still matter. I don't love the fact that you have to go to a state jury to decide your fate. So that's a whole different ball of wax. But there really isn't anything that is that different. Whatever you were doing before, and if it was working, and I just had a call with a lawyer today about this, like, I don't know why you need to reinvent the wheel here. If you've been in business for a while, you have avoided litigation, or you successfully defended litigation, why do you need to revamp your entire process? That to me is kind of silly. Also, anything you do should have a business impact analysis. And I spoke to that counsel today about that. Like, I can give you recommendations until the cows come home. It doesn't make one iota of a difference if you actually can't implement them, because the business will fail. No, I don't want your business to fail. So, for example, if we say don't use carriers that have been in business for less than 3 years, that's not what I'm actually advocating, but let's say that's what I did. And that destroys your entire population of carriers that you can work with. Well, that's a really dumb idea to implement. So you can't do that. So whatever you're hearing from me, from another attorney, from another so-called risk expert, whatever insurance person, you have to understand its impact on your business. And if it's going to greatly impact your business to the point where you might not survive, that's a very bad implementation to go through. We don't want businesses to go out of business. I don't want other logistics companies to go out of business. And so you got to do what makes sense for your business. So, but compliance is important. It's definitely on the forefront. This can't be like what it was back in the day, where you had your cousin who didn't really have a job and was kind of like somewhat detail oriented. You gave them the compliance role. Like that doesn't going to work, So it's a real job. Get rid of the word safety. So that's a free one for everyone. You're not safety people. Brokers and logistics companies are not trained in safety. You're not responsible for safety. Your compliance and vetting. All right. That's your role, is to compare the data you're getting versus the policy and procedures that you agreed to implement, and analyze the information. That's it. And then if you have an automated system, hopefully it does a good amount of the legwork. But a human being still needs to be involved. That's kind of my last data point. And I'll come back to that in a second. But compliance is a real job. Someone's got to take it seriously. I don't care if you're a multi-gazillion dollar company or $3 million logistics company. Compliance is a real job, and so you got to take it seriously. You got to got your P's and Q's and everything, and T's crossed and I's dotted. Like, it's got to be written procedures. No more it's in my head. Again, as I mentioned, I'm an expert witness in truck accident cases, and I get to see the deposition testimony. I get to see discovery. It's rough, like, I feel bad for some of the defense counsel that have to defend these clients, because they're just not making good witnesses, and they didn't make a good case from a fact standpoint, because someone's trying to remember something that they did several years ago, and it should not be put in your head. And so again, compliance needs to be raised up a notch. If you've already been documenting stuff, you've already been preserving evidence, we'll talk about that in a second. Great. then again, maybe take a quick peek at your practices, tweak a little bit if you can, but I wouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater just because of all the noise that's out there. But documentation is key, and so is consistency, right? Back in the day, a lawyer friend told me, um, no policy is better than having a policy that you don't follow. Because once that document exists and the plaintiff's counsel can use it, and they find out you're not consistently practicing what you preach, that policy is a really bad policy. It would be better, again, I'm putting an asterisk here, it would have been better to have no policy and just kind of make things up as you go and have it more of a loose thing pre-Montgomery. But I will say that that's actually not true anymore. You got to have a document policy, and you got to adhere to it, and you got to be consistent. So again, if you need to give yourself some wiggle room, I'm advocating black and white, meaning it's either yes, I can use the carrier, or no, I can't use the carrier. If your business cannot operate in that granular or that black and white kind of situation, then of course, carve out exceptions documented in the policy that gives you some tolerance that people can make exceptions. I wouldn't let it be a commission salesperson making compliance decisions on the floor. It should be completely removed from any type of conflict of interest and other reasons why they want the carrier approved. Remove that decision making off the floor. And then depending on the type of decision making it is, you can elevate different hierarchy within the company who has the authority to make that decision, and just be consistent. If the answer is we want to use carriers that have 12 months of authority, but this guy has 11 months and 25 days, but we know them because he's from another trucking company and he started his own company. He's been driving for 15 years. We know him personally. Fine. Then make that exception, and you have actual knowledge that you can use to support your exception management. Then by all means do that. So, last piece. I'm ironically giving a talk on AI in a few weeks, but technology is important. I'm not one of those naysayers like, AI is going to take all of our jobs and all that. I think there's some impact for sure. But there are great technology out there. CargoNet is great technology out there. There's other services out there that you should definitely be using and leveraging, but don't be blind to it. Meaning you can't just say, I used Highway and they said the carrier was good and that was it. Okay, well, Google, Microsoft, as we all see, they're major technology companies, and sometimes their data is not correct. Sometimes AI was programmed incorrectly or trained incorrectly or has, a hallucination or whatever the buzzword is. So data sometimes is corrupted. You have to validate the data. So this is where, for me, a human being is still very important. You can definitely take out a huge chunk of the work and automate a good amount of it, but audit the information at some point. And again, up to you on how much data you audit, what percentage, the cadence that you audit. I'm not saying you should do a daily audit. Quarterly is probably acceptable. But like go back and look at, okay, they approved 100 trucking companies in this time frame. I'm going to sample 10. Go to a different site, Care 401, FMCSA, whatever, another different, provider of data, and just see if those 10 trucking companies that were approved by X should have been approved. And if the answer is yes, and it's a 99% hit rate or something a little bit less than that, then great. Then your data is pretty reliable, and you'll just do that cadence of audits every once in a while. And if you ever get sued and you have to defend your position, you can say, yeah, we use an automated system, but we also had a human being whose job it was to go and audit the information to make sure it was accurate, because we don't want to blindly rely on that information. So all this is to put you in a good defensible position. Next slide. The other way. There you go. So what's really going to happen? Well, I'm in the insurance business. I can tell you the underwriting conversations are rough. They haven't gone so far as putting warranties, like actual policy language, yet. I do think that's around the corner. But the markets are already tightened. You got people that are bouncing out, people that are diving in, which is kind of nuts in this point. But But also rates are definitely going up. We've heard as much as 300, 400%. I think a little bit that was a knee-jerk reaction. When you actually get into renewals, the numbers seem to be coming down a little bit less than those numbers I just threw out. But again, it's based on, now you got to fill out a questionnaire. What exactly are you doing to vet your carriers? And the questionnaires are very lengthy and very detailed. And again, if you commit fraud during the application process, that can definitely be used against you. So you're filling out truthful information. You got to be able to back it up. And whether the insurance companies go and audit your information, who knows? Maybe they'll use AI to audit your information at some point. But you definitely want to be truthful. You definitely want to put the best foot forward, and then you're getting credit for that. So I've seen brokers or logistics companies that have their stuff together, at least on paper. The insurance company is giving them a considerable credit back on the price increase. I've seen this from some of my customers, clients too. Shippers are freaking out and they're asking for like very big limits. So let's say you're a broker, traditionally you have $1 million or maybe $5 million. Now they want 10 million. I had a client ask for 25 million. Like, whoa, like couple things. I think that's a little crazy. I think we all got to calm down a little bit on the ask. And secondly, we just talked about the impact of the economy. What do you think is going to happen to freight rates if everyone's got to pony up $20 million worth of liability insurance? I mean, these are six-figure numbers, in premium. So these are not small amounts. You start getting into $20-25 million towers. I mean, you can be seven figures easily. And so I just don't know how they're going to pass that. They're not going to absorb it in their margins. And so I've already seen a few customers pump fake a little bit, meaning like they sent contracts over. I help review them with our clients. I'm like, okay, I'll give you a quote. And then the client goes back and like, all right, our freight rate went from X to this because I got to shell up $70,000 for this additional $1 million of liability or whatever you're asking me for. So a little bit of pump fake and customer relationships are definitely going to be important. If you don't have a great relationship or you're new to brokerage out there, it is going to be some rough waters because some of your customers might push you around and you're just going to have to figure out how you're going to absorb that hit. This came up internally. We're having kind of a healthy debate, if you want to call it that. But if you're a brokerage and you separate these two things out, dual authority and related companies, they're not the same thing, as my boss pointed out to me this morning. But for sure, if you have dual authority and you're a brokerage and a trucking company, you're definitely going to be looked at a little bit differently because you can't really claim the ignorance of safety and not knowing how a truck operates. And I just think that as much as you should bifurcate the businesses, and the brokerage should really be the brokerage and the trucking should be the trucking, and there are legal ways to set that up a little bit better. But if you have a dual authority company, just know that plaintiff's attorneys for sure will dig in deeper and make you feel the pressure of not being able to claim ignorance about how trucking really operates. Now, if you have a sister company, meaning they're not the same MC, completely separate companies, maybe completely separate legal, possibly different ownership, maybe some common linkage, I still think you're going to have some litigation arguments to try to kind of muddy the waters a little bit. And while they may not win a negligent hiring claim, because that's one of my colleagues brought up today, like if you use your own trucking company to broker your loads to, and they're good, like that should get rid of the negligent hiring claim. I agree, but then you just became a vicarious liability claim, or the actual trucking company claim, which is what I saw recently. So like there's still arguments that are going to be made. Plaintiffs' attorneys will always find a way to poke around and find your weaknesses. That's their job. And it's defense counsel's job to prepare their clients and create that moat around the castle, so to speak. And we talked about this overreaction and things like that. So, I skipped number 2. I've actually seen this is a kind of a weird response, but shippers may actually want brokers to be involved in their supply chain now because they're one layer removed from decision making. So it's kind of an odd, again, people predicting the broker industry was going to implode because of this. There actually might be a run to the store, so to speak, to get more logistics companies as part of your vetting and hiring process, because you have another throat to choke, basically. And if you're a shipper and there is no buffer and you make a hiring decision, like it's you, right? There is no more buffer in between. So again, ironically, you might see some shippers actually want to work with brokers more for that additional buffer, for the additional throat to choke if something goes south, indemnification liability, and then creating a bigger moat around their castle. So there is some of that potential as well, and I'm seeing it play out in real life. So wrapping it up, like, don't go crazy, stay calm, listen to attorneys, but also do things practical, or insurance providers or your risk management people. There has to be a practicality to all this. We don't know what reasonable really means yet. Court cases will help decide that. Each state has maybe a different flavor, what that's going to look like. But ignoring data, ignoring personal information that you have about a trucking company, all evidence is discoverable. I think I forgot to talk about that last piece. So on your due diligence, you got to retain the records. So if you have software that does it, I know Care4One has a snapshot, but like, you have to be able to prove on the day that you hired X what the snapshot of due diligence looked like. So again, if your supplier doesn't have that, your third-party supplier, that's a shame, and maybe you should look at changing. They for the most part should, or create a manual workaround where you're taking a snapshot and that gets put into a file that no one really touches, almost like a litigation hold kind of file, because 3 to 5 years down the road, you might have to prove what it looked like 3 or 5 years ago, and that's going to be very difficult to do if you don't preserve that data. So having a document retention policy around evidence preservation when it comes to at least a due diligence snapshot is very critical, and something that probably does need to get added to your mix if you haven't done that already. So that's the last little nugget I'll give you on that piece. But anyone can get sued for anything. I don't think much has changed, and stay the course, and just be in a defense thinking mind of being able to defend your position at some point down the road.
Awesome, Jared. Thank you, man. We do have like 3 minutes left. So if we could fill it with, I actually have a burning question myself. So clearly this ruling puts more responsibility on the brokers to hire safe carriers, but like, there really isn't a clear standard, right, for what's reasonable due diligence, and what that looks like. So do you think the government should establish a minimum vetting standard that, that's followed, that helps protect brokers from negligent hiring claims? And part two, or do we really not want the government regulating how we do our jobs? So I know there's a fine line there, but do you have any thoughts on that?
That's a really good question. My initial gut response is definitely yes on number one. We need clear standards. People need to understand, look at the markets, stock markets. People don't like they like predictability. They don't like uncertainty, right? Uncertainty gets priced into the markets. Certain traders may like it, but long-term investors like myself really don't like uncertainty. But it's the same thing with business. Like, if things are certain and you can work around it, your business becomes more efficient. You can do things better. I just think it is the government's job, first of all, when it comes to safety. It is definitely FMCSA's job to regulate trucking companies. It is not a broker's job to determine the safety of a trucking company. That's a crazy ask. It's never should have been floated out there, but it is what it is. So TIA is out there pounding the pavement, trying to get the FMCSA and the DOT to come up with standards. And I think that's the right play. Generally speaking, do I love the government interfering with business? No, I think this administration has shown that if you kind of take your hands off a little bit and let businesses kind of do their thing, they tend to do the right thing. The private sector is definitely more efficient at running things than the government, generally speaking. And so I don't love that part of it. But when it comes to this piece, I do think this is what the government is designed to do, and they are designed to give us the rules of the road, so to speak, pun intended, and then we're supposed to follow them. And without that, It's just, it makes it very mucky, and makes lawyers a
Would
lot of
you
money.
consider that subjective, right, by the jury? They're having to determine who did
That's
enough, and how do they know if they
100%.
did enough?
This is the problem. And so, again, speaking from firsthand experience, I had a client who got sued. I don't think the case was very meritorious. I think it was kind of a BS case. But the jury saw a picture of a trucking company or truck on the company's website and was convinced by the plaintiff's attorney they were the actual trucker. They had no trucks. They have no trucking authority. And a jury in Bufu place, whatever, was like, oh yeah, that's a truck. You're a trucking company. You caused the accident. You're liable. And that's it. And so, like, yeah, you don't want cases going to a jury. You don't want them trying to figure out what a lawyer's saying and then trying to piece the things together. Like, that's why most litigation or most litigation ends in settlement, because you don't want things to go to trial. And because it's a crapshoot at that point. So yeah, the government needs to definitely step in and provide way more guidance than they have. And again, and I know this because I speak about it in my cases, there's only two things the government's ever said in a regulation that a broker is supposed to do: make sure they have authority and insurance. Like, that's it. That's the only thing you can find in actual regulation that the federal government's ever put out about what a broker's actually supposed to look at. And that is it. But clearly that doesn't do anything. Otherwise, we wouldn't have all these cases. So
Awesome, man. That was really fantastic. Let's get some claps in the chat for my buddy Jared Palmer. Really appreciate you sharing your insights. And I think that was very well done. I hope we've got a lot of claps here. It looks like we got a lot of people that agree. So thank you, Jared. Next up is interesting conversation. So when I was at, I think it was the TAPA meeting or one of the meetings earlier in the year, I ran into Mo, and he had, actually I was talking to Greg Haber, who was at our table. We were just chit-chatting about technology. And then Mo had came over to the table and was talking with me about some of the things that he's working on. And I knew they were both engineers, and I kind of connected them together. And I watched this really interesting conversation. Like, they were both super engaged, and I'm listening to them, and I'm like, this could be something. I think this is a topic that needs to be covered. We hear there's jammers, there's spoofing, we know some of it exists, we know some of it doesn't. We're told it can't be spoofed. There's no anti-spoofing, there's no anti-jamming. It's a lot of stuff in the air. So today we've got Mo and Greg Haber will be joining us to talk about anti-jamming technology, fact versus fiction. Mo, Greg, the floor is yours.
Awesome. How's the audio? Audio's good?
Audio is very good, sir.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Thank you so much for allowing us to come on here. I really appreciate it, Sal, Maurizio. It's really an honor to be part of this council. It's kind of uncharted waters for me in a way, the trucking industry. So I'll just come right out and say that. But and I'll introduce Greg in a second. And you're right, Sal. That was a great meeting over down in Tampa in Atlanta, where I know I think my colleague had attended the kickoff of the council at the steakhouse. Unfortunately, I couldn't make that one, but I was happy to finally meet you down in Tampa. And thanks for the intro to Greg. And yeah, we've become fast friends. It's like I don't know. Greg is like my brother from another mother or something. So, yeah, we're going to try to dissect today a little bit of kind of the hype, versus the reality, fact versus fiction, about spoofing and tracking and jamming and all this. It's a really great segue from what Jared was just talking about, right? Because I heard Jared talking about data validation, right? Like, how do you validate your data? That's kind of going to be the theme here, right? How do we validate location data when it comes to GPS and telematics and where where your trucks are and things like that. So on the agenda, we'll go into obviously why are we talking about this? Why is this so important? It's a real hot topic these days. We'll start with some fundamentals, going into how GPS works. We're not going to go too crazy with the tech. Keep it high level, but it's important to understand the foundation first, and then we'll kind of differentiate between jamming and spoofing. Talk a little bit about tracking devices, unauthorized or hidden GPS trackers, and then what do we do about all this? How do we detect the threat? What are the best practices for response? And what does the future hold, right? Both from regulatory side, technology side, and obviously most important to the audience here, operational, right? High level, right? We're going to try to keep it very much industry focused. So next slide, please. Steve, if you could go next slide. Thank you. So just a quick about me, and then I'll toss it over to Greg. So I'm the CEO and founder of Mobile Defender Incorporated, which is a GPS security startup out of my research out of NYU. I'm the Chief Information Security Officer at the Department of Sanitation. I've been with the city over 25 years. I was the CISO at the fire department. I did 10 years at NYPD. I was the founding head of NYC 911 cybersecurity. Out of my research, I teach at NYU. Out of the research came some of these GPS technology discoveries, if you will, inventions. It's really been an exciting time, and I'm really so happy to be here to share with you guys. So let's go next slide, and let's throw it over to Greg if you want to jump in and introduce yourself.
Sure. So I've been within the transportation security business for almost 30 years, but prior to being with a company called Babaco, I was involved with a early adapter of GPS called OnStar. And back then, GPS products were not really used for consumers. So over the years, I've been working with all different types of technologies, integrating them, and seeing how they could be integrated and used within the transportation business. So,
Awesome.
And I was lucky enough to meet Mo at a show by chance.
I'm the lucky one, Greg. I'm the lucky. Thank you so much. Yeah, like I said, it turns out we both share common engineering background when it comes to GPS, and really I look at Greg as a mentor because he's been in this industry for such a long time, and it's really an honor to be able to work with him and to work with everybody here in the council. So
I'm sensing a bromance here.
Yeah, brother from another mother. Let's leave it at that. Next slide, please. All right. Anybody see this on 60 Minutes? Guy Fieri, Sammy Hagar. It's been really got a lot of press about the over $1 million worth of tequila was stolen, and it was over 24,000 bottles. 2 trucks, right, headed from Laredo, Texas to Lansdale, PA, ended up somehow, we'll talk about how in a second, got through route diversion, got rerouted to LA. And more recently, I don't have a slide for it, but more recently the Kit Kat thing, and I never thought I'd be saying tequila and Kit Kat like in the same sentence, but we don't really know. We know that some trucks in Europe, right, disappeared off the kind of fell off the radar, fell off the grid, right, with the Kit Kat. Ironically, from what I heard, it was Kit Kat shaped like vehicles, right? Because it was for the F1 race, and they apparently had some kind of tracking built into the Kit Kat package, right? Like you could go online and track your special edition Kit Kat. So it's kind of the irony there. But what happened here? This wasn't like old school, by force. This wasn't like Goodfellas style. This no weapons involved, no force. The interview was on 60 Minutes with Guy Fieri. Well, what happened? Right? Hopefully you caught this. It's on YouTube if you haven't caught it. Let's go next slide, and we'll just look at the map. And here's where the green is where the 2 trucks were supposed to be headed. This was Santo Tequila, Guy Fieri and Sammy Hagar's tequila company, over $1 million worth, as I said, 24,000 bottles, ended up being redirected. Who could forget Sammy Hagar, right? VH, baby. So ended up getting rerouted to LA, and that was through spoofing. I don't have like all the technical details, to be honest, but I know that spoofing was involved. Meaning when you were tracking, when the fleet managers were tracking the cargo, whoever was, it was obviously some telematics and CargoNet. They actually interviewed Keith Lewis from CargoNet in the 60 Minutes piece. So CargoNet was very helpful in this case, in this investigation. But the idea was that first of all, this was a very sophisticated attack. So I always get the question: didn't the drivers know? I mean, the drivers knew where they were going, right? Didn't the drivers know they were heading to LA? Like these weren't like self-driving trucks or something, right? So with the drivers in on it, like what's the story? So again, my understanding, I don't have this secret clearance or anything, but is that the back end database, so the destination address was actually hacked as well. So this was again a sophisticated attack. The criminals changed the destination address, number one, right? So they changed the destination from Lansdale, PA to LA. Okay, that explains how the drivers thought they were headed in the right direction. But what about the tracking, right? What about the telematics? Why couldn't they see that? Couldn't the fleet managers? Couldn't Sammy Hagar and Guy Fieri see that their $1 million worth of tequila was headed the wrong direction? The answer is no, because they were tricked. The truck was tricked, and this is spoofing that we're going to talk a lot about. So the trucks actually looked like they were headed to Lansdale, PA, and it was everything was done very, very precisely. So as you checked later in the day or the next day, right, you saw them traveling closer and closer. You saw them on that green route, but they were actually on the red route. They're actually headed to LA. And you might think this is like a really, I don't know, this requires like something out of 007, James Bond Q or like CIA. But it turns out, here it is, I have this thing that you can buy this on Amazon. It's called a Hack RF1. It's legal to buy. It's a $200 or so device. Don't try this at home, kids. But no, you could buy it, and it does a lot of cool nerdy stuff that Greg and I have kind of legal stuff that we've played with as engineers. But it turns out that with this $200 Hack RF1, you can go on YouTube and there are videos how to do spoofing. You could spoof, and it's completely illegal. So don't try this at home. How do we do research? I hear some backgrounds. If you could mute, thank you. How do we do the research legally? We have something called a Faraday cage, which is basically a metal screen, right? It keeps the signals inside, and that's how we're able to do the research. So that is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about spoofing, but not just spoofing. We're also going to talk about jamming, which is jamming and spoofing are kind of like cousins. And Greg, feel free to jump in if you want to add any. I know, Greg, you may have a little more detail on this case.
So there's a tremendous amount of information here. And although this case was not really solved, we did, we do have knowledge that they did relocate and they did discover some of the bottles, but we don't have all the exact details. So there are bits and pieces, and I think there are multiple layers of technology being breached. And as far as people presenting themselves to be good guys and actually the bad guys, and then actually good drivers being told to go to a different location, and they didn't even actually know they were doing anything wrong. So we're going to get into this a little bit deeper in time, but it's a great watch on YouTube, 60 Minutes with Keith Lewis and the Sammy Hagar's and Guy Fieri's tequila. Yep, we're going to talk about the technology a little bit more in a few minutes.
Thank you, Greg. Yep.
Sure.
Next slide, please. Appreciate it. All right. So who gets spoofed? The short answer: everyone. Everyone who's in this industry: cargo owners, freight brokers, fleet owners, the trucks, telematics, as I mentioned, drivers, fleet managers, right? Because they're all operating off this shared location data. That the bottom line is, we'll get into some of the technology, there is no security in GPS. Period. Hard stop. there is no security. We are blindly trusting this super weak signal that comes from 20,000 kilometers away from these satellites, right? And the answer to all of in the kind of the relatively short time I've been involved in the cargo theft industry, and I'm learning a lot real quick. But everybody's answer to or one of the primary answers, I mean, as Greg said, there's layers, but one of the most important layers is tracking, right? And we're all trusting blindly the tracking that we're getting off of our GPS, off of our telematics. And everybody is trusting it. Nobody's validating it. And you just heard Jared say, right? Data validation, right? Insurance companies, they know that this could be spoofed, right? Guy Fieri knows it. He found out the hard way, right? Sammy Hagar, so like, what are we doing about it? So we're going to talk about the problem a little bit more in depth, and then talk about some potential fixes and solutions. But here you can see that that everybody is operating off of this shared lie. In the case of a spoof, it's not always a lie, but you don't know, and you don't know till it's too late. By the time you find out that you've been lied to, right, your tequila is already landed in LA. Next slide. So just in case, I'm a visual person, people like visuals. So, we have a lot of the pretty pictures here, but basically the idea here is that something happens, route diversion, right? Geofencing, right, is breached. Your truck is off the route. Truck looks like it's still on the route. It looks like it's safe, but it's actually not. You can go next slide. that was a short one, Steve. Some of the numbers, next slide, please. We'll go on some of the numbers. Ignore that number, Sal. I know that number, 35 billion, let's not go with that number. It's a little overstated, but some of these other numbers are from CargoNet, so we know they're good numbers. The 274K average loss per theft, right? Just one truck stolen. The 725 million, that's another CargoNet figure, just in 2025, and CargoNet. We know it's in the billions. The 35, it's kind of a number that's been thrown around a little bit out by some groups, maybe a little carelessly, but that's why it says no supporting data. But we know it's in the billions. The total economic impact of cargo theft. I'm preaching to the choir in this group. So and ATRI said that just for 2025, 6.6 billion in trucking industry losses. So we know. So how much of this is route diversion? How much of this is GPS jamming or spoofing or hidden trackers? Is a growing percentage. I don't have the exact number. CargoNet will tell you that it's a growing percentage of route diversion. This is a very fast-growing attack. It's a very an increasingly higher percentage of cargo theft is through route diversion, and increasingly higher percentage of route diversion is from spoofing. Greg, did you want to say anything on that?
And it could be combinations of many different things. So it could be fictitious pickups. There could be people disabling GPS, and it's very difficult to figure out what technology was actually used to trick everyone. You won't really know until it's solved, or until you catch someone. But you really need to be prepared to address all different types of threats, not just one single threat.
Yep, exactly. Next slide, please. All right, so we're going to try to try to debunk some of the myths here with, I'll try with, and with Greg's help. We'll talk about jamming versus spoofing. What's the difference, right? Are they the same thing or not? Is this, only something we see out in the Ukraine? Is this only a war zone problem, or is this actually criminal? And obviously, you can guess the answer to that if we're talking about it in this presentation. But and then also, like, would our tracker, would our telematics, etc., like, would I get some alert? Would I know if I'm being attacked, right? Would I know if I'm being jammed? So first of all, jam spoofing, the answer is they're not the same thing. As you can see, jamming is you lose signal completely. Jamming is from a technological perspective, a much easier hack, a much easier attack, cyber attack, because and Greg can go into more detail here, but the idea here is that the signal is so weak from the satellites from 20,000 kilometers away. From space, it's really easy to just generate noise, to transmit noise. This device will jam too. Jamming it doesn't require like a lot of sophistication because you're just drowning everything out. You could just think of it as just transmitting noise, right? Blocking your signal. It could actually block the cellular signal as well, right? So it could even jam, the signal from your telematics, from your vehicle up to the to the telematics platform. But the GPS signal, because it's so weak, it's coming from so far away, easy to jam it, right? Really easy to jam it. But the thing is, when you're jammed because you lose eyes. And Greg, go ahead.
Well, the thing about jamming is that jamming happens naturally in many occasions. So, for instance, if a lot of people on this call may be too young to realize this, but there was a thing called AM radio. For many years, you'd be on an AM in your car listening to an AM radio, and then you drive underneath a tunnel or a bridge and you lose your signal. Well, GPS is no different. So picture just being blocked by a building, certain trees. But there are things like this that you can buy on eBay. I'm not sure if you can see what I have in my hand here. This is one type of a jammer. Here's another one. They're very inexpensive. They're very easy to operate. You just turn them on, and they just create a tremendous amount of noise. That noise, all that noise has to do is cause enough interference that the GPS receiver does not receive the signals from, for instance, 4 separate GPS units being transmitted to you on Earth will tell you exactly where you are. If you make enough noise that you lose that timing and that information, your GPS unit has no idea where it is. And then when it can't, then what it doesn't do, it doesn't transmit its location through cellular. So most people think that you can communicate 2 ways with the GPS satellite, and that's not the case. The satellite's just sending information, and it's letting you know where you are on Earth based on how many satellites you see and at what time you see them. So disrupting that information, one little change will let you lose your location on Earth.
Yeah, and many times we're going to see that there's combination of jamming and spoofing. They may actually jam you at first. They may want you to, because they may want you to lose visibility of the truck for a hot minute or a short amount of time, where they can then maybe engage a spoofer and then trick where the truck is. But it's not just a war zone problem. It is a crime problem. It affects not just trucks, not just ground vehicles, aviation, marine. And spoofing as well. I'm talking about not just jamming, but spoofing. Jamming, like Greg said, you lose eyes, you lose visibility. When you're jammed. The thing is, when you're spoofed, you don't know. That's the scary part. That's kind of the dangerous part of spoofing is you don't know until it's too late. All right. Jamming is a big problem because if I, it's kind of like I'm throwing the wool over your eyes, and then I could do whatever I'm trying to do. Something's up, but as we'll see, maybe if you're not educated, if drivers aren't educated, if fleet managers aren't educated, if brokers aren't educated, they may think, oh, this is just a known bad location. There's no signal here, right? We lose our cell signal. Like Greg said, you go in a tunnel. Well, how come? All the trucks are losing signal here, and we're not under a tunnel, right? Like, you have to start piecing together data. We'll talk about some of the things we got to be smarter about in terms of connecting the dots, right? We got to be able to kind of share intelligence and figure out if this is not just some coincidence, right? But anyways, and the tracker, the GPS unit is not going to tell you. It may tell you if it's jammed. It won't actually tell you, but you'll see that you don't see anything. You're being jammed. But if it's spoofed, as I mentioned, you won't know. You won't know because your telematics, whatever is your phone, whatever you're using to get that GPS fix, is going to be tricked, and it has no idea. So that's why it's really dangerous. And under 50, Greg showed you the jammer, under $50 for that jammer on from China on eBay, via eBay. Next slide. So I already kind of went into some of the technical aspect here. Greg and I were talking about the weak signal. It's so easy to not just to jam, but even to spoof. Spoofing is more sophisticated because spoofing obviously requires the signal that's being sent from the spoofer to look like a legit signal. But from the perspective of overpowering the actual signal that's coming from the satellite, it's just as easy, because again, the signal is so weak coming from space. It's really easy for the spoofer or the jammer to overpower it, right? It's like the same amount of, it doesn't take a lot of power to overcome the weak signal. It does take more sophistication. Instead of the $50 device from China, you got the $200 device, but but basically it's a, anyone, we say, I teach cybersecurity at NYU, and we say, these days you don't need an engineering degree, right? You go on the dark web and you can rent a hacker. You can, you can hire someone who does have, someone unfortunately who's decided to do, spoofing or whatever the case is. And it could be part of a larger organized, theft, and there could be multiple layers of attacks. And that's why we need multiple layers of defense. So next slide, please.
So
Oh, go ahead, Greg. Sorry.
Another way of saying that is that if you want to tell the GPS unit that you are in a different location, you just send those information that it would anticipate seeing from the satellites in a stronger manner than it would be seeing from space. So you're closer to the receiver and you're transmitting these signals to let it know that you're going in a different direction.
Yep. And everything looks like it's all, rainbows, ponies, and unicorns, right? Everything looks good until you find out it's not. Until you find out your tequila is not in Pennsylvania, it's in LA. So I think we kind of covered this: the jamming versus the spoofing. The jamming is a denial. We talk about in cybersecurity. I teach my students the CIA triad. It's not the spy agency, but it's confidentiality, integrity, availability. Those are the fundamental tenets of cybersecurity. So confidentiality is when you steal information. An attack against confidentiality, attack against integrity is when you make an unauthorized modification to information or data, kind of like what Jared was talking about with the validation of the data. If it's intentional, that's an integrity attack. And then availability is when you make data or a system or a service or anything unavailable, and that's a third attack. So the jamming attack is actually an attack on availability, right? So you lose eyes on your fleet, and you lose the ability to track your fleet, and that, again, that could be combined with theft or any other illegal activity. The spoofing is an attack on the integrity, right? It's an attack on the eye of the CIA triad. So the data that you're getting looks legit, but it's actually false data. Your GPS is tricked into believing that it's real, and that's how when you look at your platform, your telematics, everything looks fine. And Greg, I don't know if you want to.
Sure. So in a practical sense, if you had a GPS device such as this portable GPS device, or if you just had a GPS, like a wired GPS device that was in your vehicle, you could have a sniffer like this. So the sniffer would help you find the GPS device. And once you know where that GPS device is, you take the jammer and you put it within a proximity of about 10 feet or less, typically. Now, this unit cannot receive signals, and that unit is effectively worthless for the amount of time that jammer has power.
Exactly. Thank you, Greg. Next slide.
Sure.
Okay, so I mentioned that the criminals, the crew may jam initially just to blind you, so they can kill the tracker, as Greg was just showing you. They can kill the tracker on the tractor or the trailer. They can divert the load or lay up the load before anybody notices. So there you go. A loaded trailer is gone in minutes, and then so the jamming is just gonna blind you. But the spoofing is gonna buy the crew time. Okay, like we saw with the Santa Tequila, and basically that the thief is stealing the clock, right? They're stealing because they're stealing time. They're buying time and they're stealing the clock, and now they can get away with it a lot easier and get a lot further before you notice something is wrong. And then I mentioned that, like in the case of the 60 Minutes episode, there was some sort of back-end fraud as well. So this is often paired with other attacks, other things like fictitious pickups, carrier impersonation, strategic theft, and it's anywhere, right? It's not just on the corridors. And Greg, let you add to that.
Sure. I mean, if you watch the report, you'll notice that they did contact they did contact the owner of the shipment and say that they had a breakdown, and then they said that they were on their way, and they gave them a copy of some type of tracking which they probably were not in control of. So they believed that they were on their way, but the truth is that all the information that was given was fictitious. So they were using a combination of different types of attacks there.
Next slide, please. Okay, I want to just mention a related threat, which is unauthorized tracking. So we know you may have the tracker that you know about, the telematics unit, etc. But what happens if there is a covert or a hidden tracker? This was actually the research that I did for my PhD. I presented this in Seattle last August at a cybersecurity conference called Usenix Vehicle Sec 25, and it ended up being picked up and kind of went viral nationwide. So CBS News, CBS New York, put it on TV after the Tonys. They were more on the domestic violence angle, because unfortunately stalkers will use this to to stalk people. But you can go on Amazon and you can buy something like that one right here. You can buy a tracker like let's see if I can focus. Yeah, like Greg was showing. They're $25 on Amazon. GPS trackers. They're magnetic. They're waterproof. On a truck, they might be concealed in the undercarriage, the wheel well, under the bumper. My research, a paper came out of one of the first usable ways of detecting it. With an AirTag, you'll get alerts, right? Your phone will give you an alert for an AirTag. Whether you have an iPhone or Android, you're not going to get any alert, which is why I did why I presented the paper. Thankfully, that was peer reviewed. There was a problem not just for domestic violence but for cargo theft, because thieves and criminals will place one of these devices and learn the route, and they'll learn exactly and kind of time and location, and figure out where and when is the best place to strike. And this is a related attack. This is not GPS jamming or spoofing. This is hidden GPS trackers, unauthorized trackers. You're not going to see these on your telematics. You're not going to have any indication that there is a hidden tracker until it's too late. And Greg, go ahead.
No, I wasn't going to add anything to that.
Okay, sure. Next slide. Okay, so layered defense. It's all about multiple layers, right? What are we going to do about this? Okay, so I think by now we got. Hopefully, we kind of. Hopefully, you're convinced that this is a problem affecting cargo theft, a growing problem, and jamming, spoofing, and hidden GPS trackers. What are we doing about it? Layered defense, right? The belt and suspenders approach, as we like to say. We need to, again, have an understanding, first of all, education, right? Educate the drivers, educate the brokers, the fleet managers that, hey, this is a problem. You wouldn't even necessarily know that this is a problem from the fact that the big tech companies, they all have, as I mentioned, like AirTag, hidden Bluetooth trackers detection, but they have nothing for cellular detection for hidden trackers, and not to mention the spoofing and the jamming. So signal integrity, that's harder to do, because the spoofing, again, emulates a real signal. But if there is going to be other validation, we were talking about data validation, obviously we can do a physical sweep, and we can check the undercarriage. We can check for hidden devices, whether it's a hidden tracker or spoofer. But behavioral anomalies, independent cross checks. Like I said before, is every vehicle, there was actually a case recently in I believe it was in Montana, where there was just right on the open road, there were every truck that drove by was losing GPS, right? And it turned out it was a jamming attack. So correlate, right? Investigate. Don't just chalk things up to coincidence, right? And do your due diligence. If there's warning signs, right? Check it out. And Greg, I know you have something to add.
And I think according to this case, I mean, there were just so many failures. From the very beginning, it was double brokered. There was no processes in place to make sure that something like that wasn't happening. There was no GPS device installed within the inventory so they were basically relying on the tractor that had GPS and have that information shared with them as the owner of the goods. Meanwhile, they should have had their own tracking inside on the goods so that when something didn't look right, at least they had a reference point to look at their own GPS. They could have vetted the carrier better. They could have vetted the driver better, had the right information on the driver when things were running late, and they could have checked with the driver. I think they failed at every point that they possibly could have, and it's a wonder that doesn't happen more often when people are that lazy.
Yeah, and Greg, as you and I were talking the other day, right? You only hear about the ones where that we know about, right? There's so many of these incidents that go unreported. We don't know, right? Because that is the definition of spoofing, for example, right? You don't know you've been spoofed. You may know too late.
Guys, sorry, time check.
Yeah, yep.
Can we wrap it up? We're about 5 minutes over here.
Oh, sure. Sorry about that. We're going to wrap up. So we have our best practices. We kind of went through these already. Everybody is a part of the solution: the driver, dispatcher, security team, law enforcement, right? And I think there was just one or two more slides to wrap up. Next slide. So Greg, do you want to take us through that, and then we'll wrap?
Yeah, I think I started touching upon that. So you really need to have a process in place, technology, and a later approach. Putting everything together. You cannot rely on one factor to keep yourself safe and secure.
Exactly. And I think the last slide, just the takeaways, 5 things to take away. Sorry for going a little bit over. Jamming, you lose the signal, denies the signal, no GPS. Spoofing, you deceive. Both are here. They're cheap. They're easy to do. No security, no authentication in civilian GPS, right? So we're not going to get an alarm when you're spoofed. Hidden trackers is a problem, right? They turn your shipment into the thief's surveillance feed. Detection, as Greg said, layered signal integrity, cross-checks behavior, and no device is good enough. You need to layer multiple devices, multiple technologies, verify independently, report fast. Thank you so much, Sal. Thank you, Greg. Thank you to the council. Really appreciate the time.
Yeah,
We're happy to take questions.
That was awesome. Guys, let's get some claps going for our speakers. Come on, let's see those claps, those thumbs up. Nothing? No one? There we go. Thanks, Mr. Greenberg. Appreciate you. All right, listen, guys, that was really awesome. I failed you. 30 minutes is not enough. But the good news is, for anyone that's coming to the Travelers CargoNet Veris conference in October in California, also free to attend. Greg and Mo will be repeating this, and we're going to give them certainly more time to get it all in. But we're always trying to be unique and different and offer different angles, because we go to these events, we join the webinars, and there's a lot of the same thing. You can only say the same thing so many times until it's not interesting anymore. So to wrap this up, we are going to open this up for questions. I'm going to send off my 30-second closing notes, hand it over to Maurizio, and he's going to wrap it up for us. So questions, ask them in the chat. It can be for our presenters. It can be for the board. It could be questions, generic questions, thoughts, ideas. This is an open discussion. Steve, how is this going to work logistically?
We can submit the questions through the Q&A function of the Teams, and then I can read them out to the group.
So while we're waiting for the questions, let me go back on camera. So while we're waiting for the questions to come in, I'll just do my end closing part here. And it's one thing that I'm thinking of is a fundraiser for emerging supply chain security professionals, as well as supporting law enforcement, whether it's training or travel for training, things of that nature. I threw around the idea of a golf outing in New Jersey. I'd love to learn more if there's interest. So if anyone has interest, shoot us a note through the inbox, info@necsc.co, or email us and let us know that you would be interested and how many would be attending. It would probably be towards September. And also at the end of this, we're going to send out a survey, and I can't express to you enough how important it is that you fill out the survey, because that's going to help us deliver a better product for you. And I do want to obviously thank everyone. And Maurizio, let the questions continue to triculate, maybe we can jump you onto the closing comments and then wrap it up with question and answers.
Sure, no problem. So obviously the part that I think we're going to need some help on is understanding what's next. Like, what is it that is most relevant for the team that's on the call? We started with about 40 some odd folks. I know we had a little more than that register, but you see the type of work product that we're looking to deliver, right? So feedback is going to be great. Sal did mention you're going to get a survey, not just about what you liked, but about what else can we add? You know, what else can we contribute to this type of an audience? The one thing that I already got as a potential topic of discussion is, hey, can we get detail by mode? In other words, what's happening in the marketplace by mode? You know, what's the parcel world look like? What's the intermodal world look like, other than just truckload LTL? So I think that's a great call out, and we're going to work on that in short order, right? So I think we can deliver a different type of intelligence. Then there was another text I got. What about strings? Can you talk about strings and problem areas and piracy? We can get into the water piece, but that's outside of really the region. But I think if there's an interest, we'll find it and we'll deliver it. We have access to 4 different portals that tell that story, so we can do some of that as well, right? So I think one of the things that's really important for us is to make sure that we hear you and that you guys have a voice. And speaking of voices, we've got board members that are super talented, and I'm going to ask them if they have anything they'd like to contribute before we kind of wrap it up. So Jared, anything on your end? Tim, Will?
I posted a question.
You posted a question. I see a thumbs up
In the Q&A.
Oh, let me click that one. Oh, Greg and team. Okay. So let me read that real quick. Are you suggesting for a shipper to use different Cobra tracking devices embedded in the freight, or just use the same maker but several sprinkled out in the cargo?
What I'm suggesting is that if your requirement is that the tractor has a tracking device, well then, and you don't own any part of the vehicle, you should put your own embedded tracking in the goods that are being shipped.
I'm with you there. I'm saying, instead, for example, throwing 7P and on tracker, two different manufacturers. Are you suggesting the shipper embed only 7P, or because of the different jamming and spoofing out there, have one 7P, have one on track as part of the embedded layer?
See, I don't think the issue is about the service provider. So 7P
Okay.
happens to be an excellent service provider, but the characteristics of GPS is by having 7P and 5 other manufacturers, they're all working off the same technology. They all have their own software, which are doing different features and running different algorithms to help you do tracking and reports and exception reports. But you should have multiple tracking units in different parts of the vehicles, is my answer, without saying a specific manufacturer.
Got it. Okay.
Does that help? I mean, I don't foresee one manufacturer being specifically more equipped to deal with the fact that something's being either spoofed or jammed.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, they're all going to be susceptible, but I think what Greg is getting at is if you have multiple trackers, then maybe the spoofer isn't reaching, maybe if the spoofer is in the front of the, the cab, right? Maybe because the truck is metal, right? Maybe it won't hit you. Maybe you get lucky and it doesn't, reach, the cargo in the back, right? So
Right,
yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
So
Tim.
this jammer, if I put this jammer on the passenger seat in the tractor, it's certainly not going to be able to jam everything inside the trailer, or vice versa. Does that help at all? So you need
Yeah,
multiple
so
jammers if you had
no, I get
multiple
it.
GPS devices.
Yeah, more about position than manufacturer, Jared, right? More about
Got
the
it.
positioning. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's more about positioning.
Perfect.
So I think, Stephen, you said you got some questions sent to you directly. If you,
Yep. I've got a couple. So first, from an engineering perspective, what's the most technically challenging aspect of detecting GPS spoofing versus traditional GPS jamming?
Want me to take that, Greg?
You go first. Go ahead.
I'll take it real quick. Well, spoofing, you gotta do a fake signal, right? You're not just transmitting noise, right? As I said, jamming, you're just sending noise. You're taking out everything. It doesn't require a lot of sophistication. But Greg, I know you have more on that.
Right. And then on top of being able just to do that, you need to have some more inside information. So if you're going from Texas to New York and you're going to spoof that, you just can't send arbitrary signals and have that signal showing that it's in Arkansas and Ohio and California. That's not going to be effective. So you actually have to send out information that's realistic. And as it's going from Texas to New York at a constant speed on a specific road that's relative and it makes sense. So spoofing is a lot more difficult to do. I'm not so sure how often that's really happening and how effective it is. I mean, today, I mean, I've been exposed to some information that, for instance, they've exposed some type of tracking app that their people are using on their phones. And then what the bad guys did is they took that phone and they put that phone inside of a car and went on the actual route that it's supposed to go on from Texas to New York, and the goods went in a different direction. So that's still considered spoofing. So spoofing is a generic term, but it has to be done in a specific way so that it works. And then you believe that information because that information has to be believable. The truck can't be going 200 miles an hour in the wrong direction for you to be spoofed effectively, right?
thanks, guys. Steve,
Yep.
anything else?
Yep, we got another question for Jared. 5 years from now, what lasting impact do you think this case will have on the transportation industry?
Oh, geez. Crystal ball predictions. That's a good question. I think litigation costs will be more expensive. I think that this will force the TA and other industry people, trade groups to really try to get the FMCSA and the DOT to come up with regulation. I think you're going to see a lot more heavier lobbying efforts because of this. You already saw C.H. Robinson has changed their vetting process and has publicly come out with it. So that's having a major ripple effect. A lot of carriers do not have access to the C.H. Robinson load board or freight. That's going to put some people out of business for sure. So 5 years is a long, I don't know if I can go 5 years out. I could probably say within the next 6 to 12 months, freight rates will go up, trucking companies will go out of business, insurance rates will be high.
Jared, do you think that the insurance rates are gonna go higher a lot sooner than 5 years from now, or?
But it's happening right now.
Right.
I feel bad for the people that are going through renewals right now.
Is there any numbers of what percentage of increase, inland or cargo insurance has gone up since the announcement of the ruling?
Someone wasn't listening to my presentation.
Oh, I was juggling other things. I was just testing you to see if you remember what you presented on.
It's 300 to 400%. We've seen underwriters come out with those numbers. Like I said, some of them are holding true to that. Closer underwriters that we have better relationships with, they'll view the carrier questionnaire because they're sending a questionnaire now as part of the application process. And if they think the vetting seems pretty good, like I said, on paper, they kind of come back to a much more normal number. But yeah, I mean, it's still hefty. Like I'll give you an example. I have a client whose total premium is $80,000 for every type of insurance that a broker needs, just to raise their auto liability from 1 million to 5 would have doubled their total insurance for the company. So that would have gone from 80,000 for all the insurance and almost another 80,000 just for the additional liability. I mean, that doubles your insurance cost.
So, but that's where the broker kicks the can, right? Like it's now they're going to build that into their
That's
rates.
exactly what they did. They went
And
back
then
to
the
that
shippers are
customer
going
and
to bake
said,
it into their product
Yep.
prices, and then we're paying for it all, right?
exactly. So that
Jump in,
shipper
Maurice.
backed off. Yeah, that shipper backed off when that broker said they showed them the invoice. They're like, this is how much it costs for us to buy the insurance that you're asking for. To absorb that into our margin, we need this much more per load. And the shipper's like, we're good with the insurance you have.
Yeah. Excellent.
Hey,
Thank you.
JP, do you see an increase
Yeah.
in captive? And do you see carriers utilizing more
Ooh.
of that trip transit contingency cargo at the individual shipment level to minimize cost?
Well, kind of mixing two concepts there. Captive
Yep,
is very
I am.
interesting. I do think the captive is definitely a place that if the underwriters keep pushing the rates through the roof, there will probably be some very interesting group captive conversations happening for those companies that kind of got their stuff together and don't really have in their mind the exposure. Because when you start paying 7 figures, 8 figures for insurance, and you're really not having claims, you're making someone a lot of money. And so if you think you have good risk controls in place, I can see a captive market exploding for sure in that world. So yes, we've actually talked about that recently, and they might force some people to go into the captive because their premiums are just out of control. The trip transit stuff is cargo related. It's not liability related for contingent auto liability exposure. So the cargo stuff is a separate thing. Shipper's interest, trip transit, whatever you want to call it, that's still pretty popular and continues to be so, but kind of going on its own path, really unrelated to this. What has been floated out there is trip transit contingent auto liability coverage. Where you pay for the specific risk on that particular load as a one-off risk versus insuring all your liability across your 12-month policy period.
That's
So
exactly
that
what
could
I'm
be
talking
some.
about. That's the Insurance Office of America model for the last 15 years. It's at the individual shipment level only, and I think that's going to explode now that it's becoming a difficult market to penetrate, to be able
Well,
to manage
with
these
AI
$1 million.
and all these validation tools out there, that could be an interesting play to say, all right, what does it cost me to insure this load with this particular trucking company hauling it, strictly just for the truck accident liability stuff? That would be cool and unique, and I'm sure someone smarter than me will come up with it.
Mo, Greg, you guys got to get on that, okay?
So we
What
got
else?
another question.
ahead.
This one's again for Mo and Greg. What current research or emerging technology are you most excited about that could significantly improve the detection of spoofing, jamming, or unauthorized tracking devices?
I'm going to take it, Greg.
Don't you go first?
Okay. Yeah, I think sensors technology is improving. I think we're seeing sensors now like everywhere. Road sensors. There may be other, what we call like ground truth sources of truth that we can, leverage. I saw one of the telematics companies has these stickers that you can put right on the cargo that have little like Bluetooth tags. So it's again multiple layers, different other sensors, and they are working on improving the security of GPS, but it's going to be a while since until they put 30 new satellites up there. Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, and there are many companies out there today that are experimenting and using a junction technology to GPS. So what they're actually doing is they're using Wi-Fi. There was a company out there using something called Pulte, and a position-based triangulation on cellular towers to aid GPS. So it's a lot harder to jam or spoof if you have multiple pieces of information coming in on different technologies and different frequencies. And I think that's the future. Because there's so much Wi-Fi available today and spectrum information that you can have for a communication that will assist in helping this not have, but you still need all types of processes in place. You need multiple layers of different types of defenses and information so that you can see if something is going awry.
So Greg,
just-
I was gonna say onto that, one of the questions is actually you seem to be answering it. If you were designing a fleet security architecture from scratch today, what technologies or layers of defense would you consider essential?
I would not trust any information that's just given to me over emails. I would validate any type of driver, validate any company you're hiring. I would have multiple GPS devices, and I would have a layered approach on that GPS to make sure that things are being reported when it's at origin, destination, and I would confirm those types of things and with automation with technology, not people and waiting for things to be missing.
Yeah, I'm glad that the smart stickers had come up, and can you guys just talk a little bit about? I know it's kind of a little newer, but what is your opinion on these and its efficiency and effectiveness?
Want to go, Mo?
Yeah, I mean, Bluetooth is kind of what all these smart stickers and smart trailers, yeah, there you go. Sal's got one. So, they're short range, right? And again, if you have a jammer like the one that Greg had, you can easily, the first thing I would do, I teach my students, think like an attacker, right? The best defender is the one who plays good offense, right? So, basically, first thing I would do is if I was stealing cargo, is I'd turn on the jammer, right? And then all those like stick-on sensors are useless. But layers, right? It's a cat and mouse game, right? We got to stay one step ahead.
So more of a secondary, not really a primary.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. We got 3 minutes left. So Maurizio, you want to, or Steve, I'm sorry, were there more questions?
I think we could wrap it up. I think the other ones were answered for the most part.
Great.
Okay, so we have recorded this. We will share it or actually post it on NECSC website. And I want to thank everyone for participating, our speakers, our presenters, our board, and I want to ask Maurizio to close it out for us.
Yeah, no problem. So this is obviously the first one. We were able to have a great meal together and kind of introduce each other and talk a bit about what the great work being done by the New Jersey State Police was, and that's when we had more of an investigative conversation. However, this set is more about, I would call it more of an academic presentation, right? We learned quite a bit of different technology, and I think the next 2 or 3 are going to dictate what we're going to look like over time. So again, if you guys have a chance to give us feedback, that's great. But we definitely, from the text that I've been receiving, saying, hey, carve out by mode. We really need to understand, the landscape of the US by mode. We're going to get started on that for you in the next couple of weeks and start building that out for you already, right? So please communicate, upward. Let us know what we can do. Bring in more folks so that we can make this bigger and better. And again, the matrix I shared with you at the beginning of our presentation, that is exactly what we're going to look like when it's said and done. Our job is to bring it all together and deliver it in a way that is consumable, not overwhelming. That's all I had for everyone today, Sal.
Awesome. Well, that'll wrap it up. That will end our first Q2 webinar in the books. Thank you, everyone. Have a great week.
Ciao. Thanks, guys.